Hey, it's Dr. J, and guess what? It's Tuesday, and it's a special time on for us at the SAC. It's Tuesday where we have one of our, how can we say, our friends in business, but also our resident nutrition guru, Jamie Hayes, come on. And I've known Jamie for, as I was talking just offline, over a couple of decades now, and he's helped so many people, not just with weight loss, but also with wellness, exercise. He's had his own chain of health clubs and now drives three businesses in weight loss and also healthy eating with Diet Flex and keto fitness. And we're really blessed to have him helping us through this period to actually help us with not just eating well, but also having the tools to be able to make it easy to do. So welcome, Jamie. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Hey, Steve, and look at you got a bit of a crowd happening here. Fantastic. Good to see, and hello to everybody that's watching later. And I just want to remind everybody, I'm not the expert. I'm really like the librarian. The librarian didn't write all the books. The librarian's not the expert. The librarian put those books together and made them available, for people. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian, but I have a rule in life, which is study what you seek and read broadly and listen to experts like you to form a view with perspectives. So study what you seek. If you're seeking health, then study that. And anybody that's got any health condition, I say you should try to learn more about your health condition than your doctor.
Look, it's a really good place to start this morning because when we actually are working hard, and I was talking to just a couple of people yesterday. We have a big day in the Sales Authority Club with a lot of check-ins and so forth. And some people are really working really hard, getting ready for everything opening. And some of them are saying they were lacking in, how can we say, energy. They were, skipping meals and so forth. And I got them to go back to last week. And one thing you said last week is you changed your diet. And you started eating a very healthy diet, but you had these spikes in your insulin, which made you fall asleep. And coincidentally, one of the people in the Sales Authority Club were talking about people having car accidents and how it's not really related to just alcohol. It has a lot to do with people falling asleep at the wheel. So it was absolutely so, how can we say, advantageous having that information to share. But it's not just about health and eating well and losing weight. It's about the whole gambit. And I think what you shared with the guys here, especially, is some of the tools and some of the things you can get. I mean, you were talking about how to store things, how to measure things, when to eat, when not to eat, when to have fasting, and all those great things make a massive difference because we don't know what we don't know, Jamie. So I'm wondering what you're going to share with us today.
That's a lot. And, if we Google any subject about diet or weight loss or whatever like that, we'll probably come up with not a million, but maybe a billion different Google links. So it's not a lack of information. Now, an expert I know uses this phrase PDR, practice, drill, rehearse. I think that's you, Steve. And when it comes to your body, I've always said, I'm not the expert, your doctor's not your expert, your body's the expert. You want to monitor your body's responses, just like in sales. Of course, you get people to monitor their lead generation, their lead conversion, their show rates, all that sort of stuff. But we should also monitor how our bodies respond to different foods. And this morning, I want to go beyond individual carbohydrate tolerance, which I think is the individual carbohydrate tolerance, I really believe, is the elephant in the room, particularly when it comes to energy management and weight control. I mean, with weight control, the key to weight control is unlocking the energy in your fat cells so that you've got energy all day long, whether you're eating or not. So that's nirvana. That's where we want to get to. But when it comes to managing our immune function, our health and things like that, we all, our bodies are a little bit different. I don't know if I've shared a secret with you that just like Superman was allergic to kryptonite, I discovered about a decade ago that I have a kryptonite because we were driving with the four boys from Brisbane down to see my parents at Christmas time in the four-wheel drive. We pulled over for petrol. The boys went in to get junk or a snack while I filled up with petrol. And about a few miles down the road, I started having an asthmatic response, like shortness of breath. I'm really checking out. And I said, what are you chewing? And they were chewing spearmint gum. And I discovered that spearmint is my kryptonite. I am really allergic to spearmint. Peppermint I could have all day long. But Steve, if I was in the same room as you, we talk about coronavirus and spreading, when just by talking or singing or shouting and stuff like that. But if you were chewing spearmint gum, my lungs would start shutting down.
Wow.
How about that?
Jesus. And did you have a test after that to check with a naturopath or something to see if that was an allergic reaction, or is that just you tested it again to see if you had the
I didn't need any tests. Spearmint, shortness of breath. Spearmint, shortness of breath. So, my body's the expert. Prevention is better than cure. So I just listen to my body. My father, Ross Hayes, used to say that. Listen to your body. And prevention is definitely much better than cure.
Well, yes, you said a little while ago, you were saying, well, look, just making sure you keep things to a minimum and, regulate what you have. And I think you said abstinence is definitely much easier than regulation.
Well, yeah, that's right. I think Saint Augustine, what was the saying? I find total abstinence far easier than perfect moderation. People say, I believe in moderation in all things, but they're overweight. So you say, how's that working for you? And if moderation's not working for you, then you need to have a different plan.
Yeah, well, I'll just have a couple of muffins a week, or I'll just have 3 glasses of wine on a Saturday, and then it becomes 10. So I think your glass. I think a few people have said to me they've actually tried using those glasses instead of getting a top up on their glass of wine. They've actually said, bring me a fresh glass and leave the glass there. And they said it stopped them in their tracks. And when they got down to 3, they said, my goodness, I'm stopping. But if they said, and it was quite just on the weekend, a friend of mine said, if I hadn't have done that, I would have just kept going and got absolutely
interesting.
As a skunk.
Steve, you are a quick study. You remember these lessons, don't you? Very good, very impressive.
Well, I'll be sharing them when we're having our conversations with people because it's really topical and it makes me sound like an expert. I'm so impressed with Michelin.
I'm so impressed with Michelin running those webinars because my definition of an expert is that you say you're one. And in life, a lot of people are fearful of sharing their lessons because the expert is way up here. Let me get the camera way up here when they've just learnt a few things. But what I've learnt is that the expert that's way up here is super expensive and unavailable, and they take so much for granted that sometimes the person that can take you to the next level is just one level ahead of you.
That's what we're saying in PDR. If you learn something, teach someone straight away because you'll actually compound it by up to 5 times faster. And you're absolutely right. And it's fresh in your mind where the expert got too much in their head. So you're spot on the money.
Yeah.
So,
now,
it's great to be able to share.
I do have some extra stuff to share this morning, but I'm mindful that let's keep our eye on any questions that come in. Now, despite keeping carbohydrates down, sometimes people do have negative responses to foods. And let me tell you, my story is 2 nights ago, Ellen made this fantastically delicious vegetable soup, which I think it had zucchini, broccoli, coconut milk, and we added, I think we added some bacon to it to add a bit of protein as well. And it was absolutely delicious. But did I have a sleepless night? Yes. Was my stomach and guts upset in the morning? Yes. This was all completely natural, perfectly healthy food. And I thought I would, so I wonder if that's coincidence with something else. So I had it the next night because I really believe in leftovers because it halves your cooking. And exactly the same. So I need to start listening to my own body. What was it in those ingredients that was causing a problem? Now, I've actually, and for anybody who's having a problem, they can go and see a dietitian and do what's called an elimination diet. And I want you to be aware of mixed signals, because let's say somebody assumes that they are gluten intolerant. Or they think, maybe I'm not gluten intolerant, I'm dairy intolerant. And so they say, I'm going to test my body and I'm going to take gluten out of my diet. And let's say I still feel like crap, no difference. So you say, well, it wasn't gluten, I'll take dairy out of my diet. And they say, didn't make any difference, I still feel like crap. So they're confused. It could well be that they are both gluten and dairy intolerant, but they never ask their body the right question. And so sometimes it's the way we ask our body the question by putting through a series of tests. I know that you and Darren, people ask you about how can I improve sales conversion, and sometimes they have a sales opportunity problem, a lead generation problem as well. So they have two problems, both sales conversion and lead generation. So there is increasing amount of evidence that there are proteins and in foods, and there are two things that I want to talk about today. And I'm no expert, but this is really just to alert people about this. One is called lectins. Lectins are substances that naturally occur in many fruits and vegetables, and sometimes these foods that are high in lectins can disrupt the guts and cause negative symptoms. And the other one is nightshades. And I think the person who first alerted me to nightshade was my dear Aunt Dorothy, and God bless her, who was one of my earlier influences when it came to foods. Now, I like to be highly visual, VAK, visual, and so when we look at things that are generally high in fat, avocados, they're pretty good. We don't have to worry about those with lectin score. Or cheeses. Here we've got Philadelphia cheese and ricotta cheese, source of protein and fat. These things, we needn't worry about if they've got any lectin. It's very, very low. And cream and things like that, very, very low in lectin. If people drink milk, A2 milk is better than A1 milk when it comes to that. When we look at things like onions, there's a lovely red onion. I like to have red onions on a thing. Very, very low in lectin. So unlikely to cause any problems.
What does the lectin actually cause? What's the problem that it causes, a lectin?
Well, often gut distress.
Right. So it's like it gives you an upset tummy.
Absolutely. You can be sitting on the toilet, you can have sleepless nights, and anything that causes gut distress is going to cause inflammation. Anything that causes inflammation is going to weaken your immune function. Today, people are very aware of their immune function, because it could well be that the virus is going to win, it's going to spread right around the world, and it's only those with high immune function that are going to be invulnerable to it.
So if we reduce the things that if we are intolerant to lectins, that will reduce inflammation. And when we have inflammation, that reduces our immune function. Well, gee, this is gold. I mean,
just through dietary choices, And it's not so much what you add to boost your immunity, but what you take away, the things that offend you. And you might have a brother or a sister that these things do not offend.
So where would we get a list of lectins that could possibly be upsetting our tummy and giving us sleepless nights?
Well, I hate to say this, but there are various, definitely you can Google it, and there are various lists available, and sometimes those lists say slightly different messages. But I'm going to show you I'm sharing the big picture. I've got some more things to demonstrate to you, things to be aware of. But ultimately, the true expert is your body. And so if you pre-plan your meals, which what we encourage with Health Inspirations and Diet Flex and Keto Fitness, to pre-plan your meals, so you pre-plan your shopping, so you always know what you're intending to eat. If in the hours afterwards, or 24 or 48 hours afterwards, you have negative symptoms, gee, that's leaving you a message, isn't it? Now, symptoms fall into two categories: acute symptoms, like I breathe in spearmint, I'm going to have an acute response. And then we've got the more difficult to understand, which is the chronic response, which is the long term. I mean, we find so many people, when they do the Diet Flex program, they say, I can't believe how well I feel. Because what we've done is we've brought down the inflammation with because they were having such an inflammatory diet. And, you know, they typically say, I thought bloating was normal. I thought joint pain was just part of getting older, you know, and I thought the head fog was normal. But I'm thinking more clearly, you know, it's
Say
just
those
amazing.
things again, Jamie. I mean, that's really important. That people these are things that are chronic, and they creep up on us, don't they? I mean, really do. It's a boiling frog.
The boiling frog is a perfect analogy.
Could you just say those things again so people could write them
Well,
down?
definitely bloating, you know,
Bloating.
and gut irritation, you know, so you know, diarrhea or things like that. You know, these are early symptoms. Other symptoms are head fog. Other symptoms are what was the other one I said? You know, joint pain. So, could there be other contributors to that? Absolutely, of course. But just imagine if you simply make some simple changes to your eating pattern and the symptoms subside or even go away. Gee, that's a big win. What was the cost?
I recall you were talking about a couple of your friends who went on to the modification of their eating, and they had a specific condition, and it actually went away. And it was, oh my goodness, that's
Yeah,
actually gone
they
now.
were medicated for good, like gastric reflux, and which is quite painful and really interrupts your sleep and lower quality of life. And they were paying for medication for decades. Within 2 weeks, their symptoms have subsided to the point where they didn't need to be medicated at all. Of course, they keep their medication. Of course, they stay in contact with their doctor. But doctor's not trained in nutrition. The doctor wasn't trained to say, have you considered just taking wheat out of your diet and seeing if it makes a difference?
Yeah, so look at they say that really everything that we put into our mouth, we are what we eat. And if we just change that, and Jeff Jowett, who you know really well,
Fantastic.
talks
Yeah.
about it, and he says, look, don't look for it overnight, get off the scales, but in 2 weeks, by doing things just a little bit more simply and making sure he talks about the things that you talk about too, and just do a little bit of moving and eating simply with no labels, like you say, 2 weeks, you will feel differently. He said maybe in 2 or 3 days, but I guarantee you in 2 weeks, you will see and feel a difference. And he said,
absolutely.
What your body tell you?
And blood tests will show the difference too, particularly high blood sugars, or even worse, high insulin, or even worse, insulin resistance. All these things can be significantly improved within 2 weeks,
So those
regardless of weight loss.
Well, the lectins actually will reduce those, inflammation goes away. Now, what is a nightshade? I thought.
Oh, well, no, I haven't finished with lectins yet.
Goodness gracious! Good.
So most nuts are problematic. Things like macadamia nuts, and here I've got a big thing of macadamia nuts. They're pretty okay. So with the Philadelphia cream, the avocado, the onion, macadamia nuts, they're pretty okay. Now, there are low lectin foods. They have lectins, but these rarely cause problems for people, like good old apple. And if you do have a sweet tooth, you just like have difficulty going to bed without having something sweet, have half an apple, lemon and limes, they're pretty low lectin.
Have a few of them before I go to bed.
Yeah. Well, I just grew up I have, another thing, funny thing. I love having the rind of lemon.
Oh God.
Some people can't eat it, but I love it, and a lot of cooks use it.
You know
Raspberries.
the rind of a lemon. I've read in naturopathic things. The rind of a lemon, if done properly, has a lot of anti-carcinogenic qualities in it. There you go.
That's interesting. Wow. So the medium lectins, the berries, raspberries and blackberries, things like that, pomegranates. So they're there we sort of moving into the medium, but it's whoa, don't want to break that. It's the high lectins we need to be aware of. So now I'm in the fancy bowl. Now, good old tomatoes. Do you know that the Italians, when Christopher Columbus sailed from Italy, and I think he brought tomatoes back to Italy, but the Italians, when they use tomatoes all the time, and they grow them in their backyards on their roofs and things like that, but they typically de-skin the tomato and de-seed the tomato before cooking it.
Yes, I've noticed that.
Yeah. So the other way of reducing this lectin exposure is to pressure cook their vegetables. So they pressure cook them, but definitely tomatoes
the lectins in the tomatoes in the skin.
In the skin and the seed.
Well, not much left, is there?
Well, no, there is. That's all the meat and the juice and things like that. So pressure cooking. So and so don't you can assume that if you're getting tomatoes in a can, this is baby Roma tomatoes. Now, I don't know if some have versions that are de-skinned and de-seeded, but that's what you want to be looking for. The same in tomato puree. They could have high lectin content, depending on the way it's done. Then you've got your peppers, capsicum and things like that. These are high lectin content as well. And there are cooking methods, and I don't know exactly how they do, but they de-skin these and de-seed these, so which can reduce the content. And then high pressure cooking also decreases them. Now, a few more to go. Definitely the seeds. Now, hummus made from chickpeas, linseed seeds, and some of the spices that have multiple seeds. A lot of seeds are very, very high in lectin content. So these are things to look out for. Kidney beans, peas, beans and things like that, high lectin content. So if anybody's saying, well, Jamie, what's left to eat? There's plenty left to eat, I can assure you. So, because remember, all the meat, fish, eggs, dairy, they're all fine. So, there is absolutely plenty to eat.
Absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. So a lot of those things that we're looking at are things out of the ground, aren't they? It's and the things with the skins on them, and obviously a hummus is actually chopped up stuff out of the ground. So it's pretty much a vegetable component, isn't it? There doesn't seem to be any type of meat, fish, type scenario. So it's a vegetable thing that lectins come from.
Yeah. Now I did make a mistake. This is not high lectin. This is nightshades.
All right.
Okay, so that was my mistake. And tomatoes, they're the nightshades. They're not, but again, problematic.
Yeah, I've been told by other people who have used their body as their tester that they found that tomatoes were incredibly acidic and just didn't agree with them, took those out of their diet, and it instantly changed how they felt. And I was, many years ago, I was told tomato isn't a vegetable, it's a fruit. And
absolutely. It's got a seed.
Yes, because it has seeds. But he took it out of his diet. It was told by his naturopath, and he thought it was silly. Within 2 weeks, that Jeff Jowett and Jamie Hayes period of time, complete change.
Now, I'm not convinced on this, the notion of foods being acidic or alkaline. That's something I've got to learn more of, whether it's because it's nightshade, whether it's because of lectins You know, who knows why your body's responding negatively to different foods. The trick is to monitor what you put in your mouth and monitor your body's responses. Do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Do you have specific symptoms? So I had a soup with 3 main ingredients. Was it all ingredients or just one ingredient? Now that's going to be a journey of exploration for me to figure out, was it one ingredient that is upsetting me or all 3 ingredients?
Right. Well, so this it's quite important to make sure that we start monitoring upset tummy if we've got a bit of foggy brain in the morning, and also possibly some bloating, and that could have an inflammation taking place, and that will affect our immune system, especially with the way the world is at the moment. So this is a very important thing that I believe that many people wouldn't even know a lectin or lectin existed.
Absolutely, of course they don't. And they might be living with a substandard health, and gee, if you're medicated, are you medicated against a chronic disease that is mainly implicated by your dietary choices? So if you are, if your dietary choices are causing that chronic disease or chronic ill health, then of course you have to go back to diet if you want to resolve that. Don't revert to drugs that are just going to hide the symptoms. You may need drugs and pharmaceuticals in the short term, but in the long term, you want to find out, what am I doing to cause this problem? And there's a field of research called epigenetics, which is we're all born with a set of genes. We can't blame those, but it's whether we fire the gun. So it's not just having the gun, but whether we fire the gun, whether we load the gun and fire the gun, that triggers our body's response. So it's called epigenetics. So anyway, we've all got a vested interest to enjoy good health and to delay the aging process.
All right. Well, they're absolute gold. Darren, you got any questions for Jamie with regard to lectins?
Not necessarily regarding lectins, but I do have a question regarding the difference of intake versus absorption. So I recently had a blood test where my iron intake was fine, but my absorption was not quite where it needs to be, and they suggested to increase citrus intake, that sort of thing. Do you have any understanding of things that can increase absorption?
Yeah, look, that is a really interesting topic. We haven't even gone there. So, and let's just repeat exactly what Darren said. There's a huge difference between having a dietary intake, whether it's food or food and dietary supplements, and having a good body chemistry, which means you're actually absorbing those. So somebody might have, let's say, a relatively sufficient iron intake if they look at their food diary, but when they had blood tests, they're anemic. And there's no doubt that vitamin C is implicated in iron absorption. So sometimes it's a combination of foods that helps us with absorption. A very good friend of mine runs a high-level nutritional practice where they look at everybody's blood chemistries to look at exactly what Darren's talking about, which is absorption, because people aren't suffering because they've got low iron in their diet. Well, a lot of people do, but because they're not absorbing the iron, and sometimes because the sources of the iron, we've got both heme iron and non-heme iron. So, for instance, actually over there I've got some spinach, which is non-heme iron versus the heme iron in red meat. So the heme iron, we've got a higher level of absorption. So that's really something to be aware of, because somebody says, look, I've got plenty of iron in my diet, or I'm taking iron supplements or whatever it is, but still I'm anemic. I've got low iron status, low energy, and a whole lot of other side effects. So, that's a fantastic point that Darren's making.
Great. Thanks, Darren. And Micheline, you're back. Have you got a question for Jamie about things and so forth?
Yeah, Jamie, my mother's 77 and she's losing a lot of energy now. And she's had a test, and anemia has been one of the things that is a problem. Now, he gave her anemia tablets, iron tablets, and she took them, but they had some side effects. she's been taking them for more than 3 months, and she's still very, very tired and very lethargic. And I've heard about iron injections and things like that. Is there a more natural way that we can address this? Because I think absorption, like you said, is an issue.
Well, does she eat red meat?
Yes, on and off, yes.
Well, it could well be just upping her red meat intake may be helpful to her.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
What do you think of livers?
Lipids?
Liver.
Oh.
Every morning, is it, Jamie? You have a liver every morning.
Boy, Micheline, you're pressing my button. I do most mornings have a small amount of liver with 1 rind of bacon and 2 eggs. So that's my typical breakfast. So liver is very high in nutrient density, be it chicken liver, beef liver, lamb liver. So I just rotate between those. That is absolutely nature's vitamin pill. It's very high in nutrient density. So it's pretty hard to go past. And for people who can't stomach liver, you can actually get desiccated powdered liver capsules or powder. So, for those people who, animal lovers, like really most of us are, if we get down to it, you want to honour the whole animal. So having organ meats, from eyes to brains, you name it. My father used to love chicken giblets. I must say I'm not too big on tripe, but I think we should try and honour the whole animal. And liver is a bargain in the supermarket too. Not many people are buying it, so supply and demand. It's super cheap. So, just like I probably have about 3 fingers of liver in the pan, and time-wise, get up early. Just chop that up. It's a nice little ritual. Throw it in with the bacon. Let that simmer. Come back maybe 10 minutes later. Add a couple of eggs. Let that simmer just at low heat. Put that into a bowl with some salt, glass of water, an espresso coffee. I'm good to go for all day. Well, at least till lunchtime anyway.
Hey, we have Jamie Cafe. Thank you, Micheline. That was awesome.
Fantastic question.
Now let's get on to nightshades. I'm actually quite fascinated because of nightshades. I've never heard of it. So is it night, N-I-G-H-T, or is it?
Yeah, night. Yeah, N-I-G-H-T, shades, And there's not enough written about nightshades and their potential impact. Let me read out a list. I'm going to look down and read eggplants, capsicum, chili pepper, white potatoes, tomatoes, tomatillos, goji berries, gooseberries, okra, paprika, cayenne pepper, squash, and pretty well all seeds. So even cashews, walnuts, and pistachios are seeds. So there's a little short list for people, and if you Google nightshades, you'll find out more about that.
What do nightshades do that are detrimental to your health, or are they a good one? Are they a good thing to have lots of nightshades?
Well, again, it depends upon your body's response. And Steve, you've asked me lots of great questions, and I've said one of the most liberating things in my life is I don't need to know the answers to all questions. And so I'm not the best expert to answer your question. All I know that for many people, nightshades and this group of vegetables and seeds are problematic. So that's all I'm doing this morning, is to raise awareness and say, if you're suffering either acute or chronic issues or things you're just living with, these are things you should consider, to say, have I just been eating these all my life, and all my life they've been problematic? My body just doesn't respond to them. Of course, we all remember the blood type diet, where the author Adamo looked at people's response depending upon their blood type, and it was interesting. That was poo-pooed a lot at the time, and I'm not too sure there's a lot of evidence. But he did raise this issue of nightshades and lectins, in that book. So good on him for doing that.
So nightshades do similar things than lectins, like inflammation, foggy brain, a
Absolutely.
little bit of bloating, same sort of thing, but they are from a different category, so to speak. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, because in nature, if we look at this lovely apple, we've got skins, that protect it against the element. Sometimes the skin doesn't taste too good, and so we naturally peel some fruits and vegetables, and then the seeds are in a hard, are enclosed. So even if a bird eats the seeds, they're not fully absorbed, and the birds or will travel far distance and then poo those seeds out somewhere, and so that's a way for these things to self-seed, elsewhere and to survive. So it's amazing what nature does to help that apple avoid the threats and to propagate.
Right. So if people are feeling a little bit, how can we say, uncomfortable after eating, a lot of people blame the bread or the pasta, I feel bloated and so forth because of the, what do they say, it creates candida and all that sort of jazz. But if we look at other things such as the lectins and also the nightshades, and maybe just start doing some elimination, that makes a big difference. I know when I have, let's say I get a bit of takeaway in some Chinese food and they've actually used MSG. Well, I can tell you right now that I don't sleep that well, and I wake up with a, and I'm really thirsty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I said, oh, gee whiz, I always ask to make sure that they take that out because it doesn't agree with me. And I need to get more sleep at the best of times.
And that's about being defensive. So good on you. So that's a great message. You really want to be defensive, about asking people not to add MSG, and they're used to it. And you can say, look, I am celiac. I cannot eat. If you want to call the ambulance, do not have any gluten in my. So we've got a very close friend who is celiac, and she will say that, I am celiac. I cannot eat anything with gluten. She even says it with meats because I'll pour different sauces over meats. So if you don't want to call the ambulance because somebody's convulsing in your restaurant, make sure that there is no gluten in what you serve me.
Terrific.
And then just one tip on the Chinese. Sometimes. Gee, what is in this? You can, if it's takeaway, whatever like that, you can rinse it out in steaming hot water in a colander or whatever like that, and then serve it out, and it gets rid of a whole lot of the crap.
That's a good idea. All right. Well, I must say that my doctor said that they use a lot of Chinese restaurants, and he's a bit of a connoisseur on this. He's a bit of a chef, so he said, be careful if they use palm oil because it's really not good for you. They use a lot of palm oil. I said, how
Absolutely.
do I know? He said, pop your head into the kitchen and see if they're using it. And matter of fact, I had a look one day. I went to a place in Chinatown. I just had a Bo Peep, and sure enough, there was palm oil there.
Absolutely. And, look, McDonald's used to fry their chips in lard. And then there was this big scare about saturated fat and heart disease. And they went to polyunsaturated seed oils, these manufactured seed oils. And look what's happened in health, in the last few decades in America. Unbelievable. I think, was it 1 in 8 are metabolically healthy US adults? No wonder they're dropping like flies with this current virus.
So go back to our very first chat, Jamie, and you went through some wonderful things on that immunity and making sure that the measurement of your girth is not more than half of your height, or if it's more than your height, you'll probably have an immune disorder. And unfortunately, a lot of people that have extra weight around there have perished. So if you guys are interested in listening to that, go back to
episode 1, was it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, waist to height ratio. So you don't want your waist to be more than 50% of your height. And so it's not just overweight people. Some people say, oh, they're slim, but they're carrying extra weight around their midsection. And that is highly associated with insulin resistance, which is typically undiagnosed. Because somebody can have normal blood sugar, but they've got a high level of insulin. Their pancreas is working overtime, not just for years, but for decades, producing what's called hyperinsulinemia. And eventually, the cells, the muscle cells, the liver cells, the brain cells become resistant to insulin knocking on the door, and it says no more, and our cells become insulin resistant, which is pre-diabetes, and we know that those people with diabetes are they absolutely suffer. They get knocked out by this virus, or they have much worse outcomes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up shortly. So, have you got any more questions, Michelin? Have you got a question there for Jamie? I know you're in the car.
Yeah. Jamie, just one more. I come from we eat a lot of the Mediterranean diet. All those nightshades, they're such a staple part of our, regimen in our meals. And so do things like hummus. Am I going to have to give up my culture?
No, absolutely not. Of course, there's so much that we can learn from Europeans in that Mediterranean area. But it's just sometimes it's how they're cooked. And if you're allergic to something or something doesn't work well with your body, who's going to force you to eat that?
Yeah.
So, but if you prioritize protein, get the protein in first.
Yes.
And be selective with what you surround that protein with, you'll be fine. You don't have to have it all. And remember that, let's say if you're trying to minimize wine, for instance, in the Mediterranean diet, they have wine. Well, you can accept a glass of wine, but you can leave your glass full. And
Yeah.
nobody can top up an already full glass. And you can simply say to your dear mother or aunt who cooked all those beautiful foods, they're absolutely my favorite, but I am just full as, completely full. Do you mind if because I love you and I love those foods, do you mind if I take a little bit home, Auntie Sarah or whatever, and then give it to the dog, throw it out when you get home?
Yeah. No, but I think that process of elimination, I'm definitely going to try it, because it could be very much, I've got a lot of inflammation and it might be from the nightshades and some of the other things. So I will take that on board and try it.
It may well do. And the first thing is just writing it down, what you intend to eat, mainly fresh foods, and then, but just be aware of that thing what I shared in the beginning. Sometimes it's not just eliminating one thing, sometimes it's multiple things that are causing the problem.
Yeah.
So you can get incorrect signals.
Great. Thanks so much.
It's absolutely my pleasure. You drive carefully and have a wonderful day and keep up those webinars.
Thank you. Cheers.
Now, Darren, have you got a question for Jamie?
No, no extra questions, but like Michelin said, I'll definitely be trying that process of elimination. For you, it was the gut distress. For me, occasionally it's the reflux at night, and I've never really gone back and checked what was the meal I had or what was the combination of foods that I had the night before. So I'll definitely be doing that. And I think you're right, the pre-planning so that you can look back and see what you did eat to start eliminating or eliminating the combinations is beneficial. So thanks for your knowledge.
It's a pleasure, Darren. And I learned about reflux and wheat from the author of The Wheat Belly, a cardiologist.
Wheat Belly was out a few years ago. That was a great book.
Dr. William Davis, Bill Davis, and absolutely fantastic. And he, my father, a doctor, he said most doctors eventually learn from observation, not education, which is their patients do something different. They say, hey, doc, guess what? I just gave up bread and beer for a few weeks and my gastric reflux, it seems to have gone. And the doctor says, but there's no evidence for that. And the patient said, I know, doc, and that's why I didn't ask you, but for me, it is self-evident, and that's all I care about. So there may not be a lot of evidence for it, but for me, it's self-evident. I stopped having these foods. I don't care why. Whether it was lectins, nightshades, or gluten or whatever, I don't care. My symptoms subsided, so it's worth giving it a go.
Terrific. Well, Jamie, absolutely fantastic, mate. Look, all these things that we don't know, and you put it in such a simplified way. And it's no wonder that Diet Flex and Keto Fitness is doing so well. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there's information and the coaches and
Absolutely.
Diet
And then
Flex.
we've got healthy inspirations around the country, or in Australia and New Zealand too. So there's lots of places where people can reach out. Healthy inspirations, Diet Flex, Keto Fitness. So they're all great sources of information and coaching and things like that. And gee, if we could match the coaching quality of you and Darren, in what the changes you make in organisations and individual sales, and profits, if we could go half as good as you guys go, then we're doing well.
Well, thanks, Jamie. And it's just a delight to talk to you with regards to the nutrition part of stuff. I mean, we do the sales stuff, and we're passionate about doing that, just like you're passionate about the nutrition. But I just want to throw this out to everybody. You've got a program which is called Diet Flex, where you have coaches and people helping you through. You've also have created the All Done For You, where you've got the videos and stuff with a little bit of touch points. And you've got the physical place where you'll go, where people want to do a little bit of exercise, which is the whole gambit. So what you've done over the years is created a one-stop shop for any type of person that wants a similar type of activity. For instance, weight loss, healthy, and feeling better. So you've created this wonderful triangle, and it's kudos to you, mate. And it just makes a big difference to a lot of people. And the investment that they would pay for either of the three ways, it pales to insignificance with the quality of life that they get. So I do recommend it to everybody. If you can go to a Healthy Inspirations, just talk to the ladies. They're absolute experts. Diet Flex is second to none as a profit center for a health club. But if you need to use something with a coach, I strongly recommend it. It's I've seen everything. We've looked at it. I'm actually using the things that Jamie's doing. And if you want it all done for you, Keto Fitness. And it's a video program with also touch points. Now, I just think everyone should know that about it. You're just here generously helping people. But I think some people like Michelin and a few of the other guys, they want to go to the next level. So I really I think that people should reach out to you, Jamie. So
thanks, Ed. I really appreciate that. I think you're my new advertising agency.
Well, mate, you're so generous with the guys in the second. I am so grateful for your time. I know how busy you are, and it's making a difference in my life. And I want to say a big thank you. So thank you.
Well, let me end with a quote. I think it was on my mother's kitchen wall. You've heard it before. I shall pass this way but once. Therefore, any good I can do, any kindness I can show, let me do it now, for I may not pass this way again.
Touche. Thanks, my friend. That's awesome. Hey, gang, hope you had that pen out. Hope you wrote lots of stuff down. Hope you scrub through this again, because once is never enough when it comes to the good stuff. Now, implementation, I say it all the time, and you're going to make sure that I'm going to push it down your throat, so to speak. You've got to put this into practice. You can't do it alone. Do it with a buddy. Do it with a coach. But make sure you do something. Don't listen to something as powerful as this and not take action, because it does yourself a disservice. So action is everything. So we'll see you next week and see what you've done. And thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. J, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.